Your powers are weak, old man.
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Here's a quick morning talk and possibly a challenge to the manosphere in general and the black manosphere. I constantly hear this notion about the 80-20 rule. All your dating coaches, most of your dating coaches believe in this 80-20 rule. Tell a lot of your SYSBM guys believe in the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the women only sleep with 20% of the guys, or a variation of that. And then the fact is that the bottom 80% of men have to share 20% of the women. So I believe it's a myth, because my eyeballs, maybe LA is a different spot. My eyeballs are telling me different. That you have the most promiscuous group of women in history, or so they claim to be the most promiscuous group of women in history, and the most available group of women in history. And they're only sleeping with 20% of the guys. And those two things don't make sense. And before we even get started, because I know there's going to be a lot of pushback on this idea, if you're going to comment and you're going to advocate for the 80-20 rule, you're going to have to prove it. And I'm not just prove it by pulling out an app and say, see here. You're going to have proof that physically that the 80-20 rule exists. I want you to define it. I want you to define exactly what you mean. Possibly make your own video, because I don't want the comment section all built up with this essay-like replies, because if it's over like 4 paragraphs in a comment section, guess what? I'm not going to read it. If anybody try to read an essay in a comment section, your eyes start to cross. Okay, your eyes will start to cross if you start to, if whatever it is in the comment section, when somebody writes more than 4 paragraphs, your eyes will start to fold over. So if you're going to, for this video only, if you write more than 4 or 5 paragraphs, I'm just going to delete it. Okay, just going to delete it, because I don't need a long paragraph, especially if you're going to have proof. You're going to have physical proof with physical data that proves your rule, okay? So the 80-20 rule, which is the Pareto principle, means that 80% of the women desire 20% of the guys, and only 20% of the guys are having regular sex with 80% of these women. And basically, for the most part, the other 80% of guys are pretty much left out. That is what they're saying. So 80% of men in a cohort, because you got to define the cohort, are not having regular sex. So let's run through some quick numbers, okay? There are approximately 240 million adults in the United States. For argument's sake, we're going to leave out the married ones. So half of the adults in America are married, okay? We're going to assume that. Half all the adults are married. So that leaves you with 60 million adults in the United States. I should say 120 million adults in the United States. I'm sorry. 60 million of those are male, or single, possibly single males. Now, for argument's sake, I'm going to throw out the 8 million of them to represent the maybe 10% of adult males that are over the age of 50. Let's put it over age 50. We're going to leave it at that. So the adult males between 18 and 50 that are sexually active, we're assuming, that are not regularly getting sex. So they got about 40 million guys. And they have to share 12 million women, give or take. So, which it actually possibly could work. 12 million women, 12 to 15 million women, give or take, could share 40 million or so guys. So that is probably what, 1 in 3. So for every 3 guys, there's 1 woman. So if you estimate that out, that every woman, a guy could have, really if a woman was amorous enough, she could have sex 6 days a week, and each guy could actually have sex twice a week. So if even at that, there would be very few guys that wouldn't have sex at all that could possibly work. In fact, I was reading the concept of what they call a village wife, where in a polygamous society where you have men that have 4 or 5 wives, then there's a portion of women that will be called village wives that will share 5 guys. In a very small group of societies, but it does exist. But if in my opinion, if you saw 80% of guys, or 80% of this group of guys, which is, if you think about it, in the United States, when you think about 150 million guys or 120 million guys, 1/3 of adult males, is basically sharing a group of women. Which if you actually consider it, it's not that bad. Okay, it's not as big a percentage as one would think. But if you saw 1/3 of adult males actually out there without sex or without women, you would see prostitution actually skyrocket, in my opinion, if they weren't getting enough sex. But if you actually think about it, the average male or the average person only has sex like 2 or 3 times a week. The average married person only has sex like 2 or 3 times a week. For a non-married person, having sex twice a week is not that bad. And the reverse for women, okay? Women, the same thing for women on the other side. If 80% of women sharing the same amount of guys and they're having sex twice a week, and these guys are actually having sex 7 days a week, it possibly could work. It possibly could work. The only problem is with women emotionally taking care of 4 women or 5 women or 6 women is almost impossible. Anybody that's dealt with women, it's almost impossible. And that would actually strike up a competition. And that would actually have to set up a situation where women are only having sex with one guy, and what the one guy that they know of. And we all know that women are competitive, or extremely competitive about the alphas. How do we know? Because the women complain about alphas. They do. They complain about them all the time. They complain about cheating all the time, even though we know that women cheat more than men, even the married ones. So the 20% of the alphas, which we know most of the alphas probably do get married at some point. They don't just constantly spin plates. They actually do get married. But even if with the alphas, they're not going to continually spin plates without some kind of competition. And if women have more than one guy, then the numbers start to break down. We're not even going to think about that. The numbers actually start to break down if the women have more than one partner. But I want to actually examine if all these particular guys are sharing the small group of women. So in other words, you have 60 million adult women, and they're only a small percentage, which is like 12 million is like 1/5. Okay, but basically, you're right, 1/5 of the women are being shared by all these guys, and 50 million women are sharing a small group of guys. It doesn't make sense to me, and there's no proof of it on the ground. Like I said, prostitution would skyrocket. You would actually hear stories about men sharing a small group of women. You actually hear stories about it. There was just a story that I think it might have been a Reddit. It might have been a Reddit. I have to go back and listen to Black Mind again, where this one chick had a body count in 1 year of 140. And I think there's a lot more women out there that have that higher body count, which is basically the body count of a prostitute. And there's a lot of women, I think most women, modern women that we're talking about, have body counts that high. And that would preclude the Pareto principle. There's no way you can have a body count that high with 20% of the guys, unless you get 20% of the guys got body counts in the thousands. Now you have some males that do have body counts in the hundreds, and sometimes the 300-400s. But for a male to have a body count that high, in the 200s, 300s is very, very rare. Whereas women, it could easily be done. So even in the small villages where the 80-20 rule is actually enforced and actually accepted, okay, those are under very strict patriarchal guidelines, okay, where these women are married and they cannot have sex outside of marriage, because they're actually restricted. And the reason they're restricted is because, and they do have village wives, is because it's there to prevent adultery. In fact, I'm going to be doing a video later on about a village wife and where the 80-20 rule is actually done. In fact, there's actually an example of the 80-20 rule, but it's under very strict conditions, and it's very strictly enforced that the women that do marry or are with 20% of these men are actually prohibited from having sex with the lower 80%. And the 20% of women that are actually shared by the lower 80% are under very strict rules. That's the only way it can happen. And in a liberal country like the United States, you're not going to see it. So I challenge all the dating coaches, all the SYSBM guys, all the guys that believe in the Pareto principles, the 80-20 rule, because I hear it a lot. Incels, what have you. I don't want to hear the mumbo jumbo. I don't want to hear a dating app. I want actual data, live data from the population that this is happening. Because only a small group of men believe in the 80-20 rule, because the women do not believe in it. The women that you question about the 80-20 rule actually say it's not happening. They say it's not happening. And every time the 80-20 rule is actually brought up to women who should know, because they're the ones sleeping with these guys that should know, actually disagree with the 80-20 rule. So, I know Solo TV 84, he's a content creator, Myron Gaines, Donovan Sharp, Rollo Tomasi, all these people that are good with empirical data. I actually want to see empirical data. I actually want to see it. I actually want to see how does it work, where is it happening, and I want to see the actual physical data that's actually going on, because in a cultural system, it doesn't work, especially in a liberal country like this, where it is actually free love. In a liberal society like this, it actually does not work. It'll actually break down without severe restrictions. More like Mormons. Mormons believe in the 80-20 rule. In nature, men and women actually disperse themselves fairly equally. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a 50% marriage rate. It'd actually be a hell of a lot lower. And actually, the women would be pushing for polygamous marriage. And they're not. Especially in the black community, because black women believe in the opposite. Anyway, I'm going to jump off of here and put this up. This is actually a 80-20 rule challenge. So like I said, if don't even spam the comment section. If you spam the comment section, you disagree with it, without proof, I'm going to delete the comment. I want proof. I want actual physical proof. I'm actually looking for data. I'm looking for, if you got links, I'm going to allow links. I'm going to go through my comment section to where, normally, for all you people that put links in, normally Google, YouTube does not allow links to be put in, and they'll always be held for review. So I'm going to have to go in, and if you got links, if you got proof, and I read the link and it's not proof, I'm going to delete it. Okay, it will never see the light of day. So if you want this stuff to be taken seriously, you want to be taken seriously, give me proof and keep it under 5 paragraphs. I'm not going to be reading all day. But that is my 80-20 challenge. I'm going to be doing another video on the village wife, where the 80-20 rule actually does happen. And I'll close it out there. So with that, I'm going to jump off here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.